Hello everyone, welcome back to Season 2, or is it Season 3, the Shed Ends View podcast. My name's Gareth McCullough.
And I'm McKenzie.
And we're back with a new season, new setup, new players and new podcasts, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. I suppose first things first, how's things?
Oh good, I was just going to say there, half of Gareth McCullough that we might have been used to. I think it was, over 500 days ago from when we last saw you. And
you're twice Ali McKenzie now. you get, if anybody doesn't know, Ali got married there a couple of weeks ago, so congratulations. Well, look, we're here to talk about Newry City, and I suppose, as you said, touching on there, this Saturday will be 529 days of work since our last official competitive away fixture, and that was against
Dergview.
And who do we play this Saturday?
We're playing Dergview this Saturday.
So fingers crossed. The last time we went, I think if anybody was on the supporters bus, we know what happened. The wheels in the bus didn't go round and round. The wheels in the bus came off. Thankfully the wheels didn't come off that night in terms of the result. But yeah, hopefully we hope a bit more of a safer travel this weekend. I suppose the last time, just to fill everybody in and do a quick recap of where we were, 529 days ago, I think we probably did a podcast. Might have done a podcast just after.
Well, sorry, I actually think we played Dergview on the Tuesday night, wasn't it?
Yep.
And we were due to go back up again on the Thursday night, I think it was, because we had to play them twice in succession. And in between that Wednesday night was when lockdown hit.
Yeah.
So we were the last game before lockdown. I think the last Irish League game.
Yeah. So it feels like, well, it was a long time ago, but it feels like a ridiculously long time ago. In terms of changes, there's been a lot of changes, in general, without wanting to get all too deep about it. But in terms of the club, a lot of new faces, staff, players, supporters. Some have left, some have come in. We've obviously signed the likes of a former Northern Ireland international, Ryan McGivern. Massive podcast favourite, Adam Foley, and his beautifully chiselled features have left, and he's now ripping up the League of Ireland with Finn Harps, which is great. John McGovern's come back with even bigger biceps than he had before he left.
Yeah, left the boy, came back a man, basically.
Yeah, and he'd absolutely squash your head there if you got on his wrong side. We did the only thing better than having one Healy at the club. We signed another, so we've now two Healys at the club with Noel's younger brother Brian. We've, as I said, you get married. I got slimmer. I'll go slimmer than skinny. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna stretch that far. I don't want it to be taking the piss completely. The club got a bit of a facelift. We got a brand new beer garden. We've got 3 new shirts that you can hopefully see behind me. We've got a new sponsor in Trainers Bar at Dan's, who have been a massive help to the club over the years, and it's great to see them on the front of the shirts. And I think, one thing that has stayed the same is Sparky still running about 24/7, keeping the show on the road. So as the saying goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So, but on to the football, I suppose itself. We started off with 3 league wins out of 3, 4 wins out of 4 if you count the League Cup. And there's a bit of a sort of a long time since that happened, isn't it?
It's the first time that's happened in 8 years. It was Intermediate B the last time that happened. Newry won their first 3 games and then lost the 4th and didn't lose a game for the rest of that season. Now I missed the first 2 games. I was on honeymoon, and even though I tried my hardest to book my honeymoon around that first league game back, because it meant so much to be back here, and the way our wedding fell, I had to book the Saturday and I wasn't getting away with it. I actually said to Louise, we can leave at 6 o'clock, and she was like, I know what you're up to. So we had to leave Saturday morning. I missed the first 2 league games and got dogs abuse for missing them as well from Stephen Beattie. Such an impressive start when you look at 3 wins, 11 goals and 7 different goal scorers. But what were those first 2 games like? Knockbreda and Harlan Wolf?
Yeah, Knockbreda was probably it took us a wee while. Both games took us a wee while to get going. And the same even with the Tobermoor game in the League Cup. 1-2-1, and to be honest with you, that could have been about 10-1. Knockbreda game was very similar. Kept a clean sheet, which is important. Scored 3 goals. Dingo gets 2 on his return, if you like, his second league debut for the club. So it's great to get your centre forward up and running. That was probably expected. You knew coming into the Tuesday night game against Harlan Wolf Welders that was going to be a tougher test. It was going to be more physical, as it proved to be. They had 2 big strikers, and Michael McClellan, who used to play for Linfield and Ards, Darren Murray, who's obviously down here and has been around probably every other club in the league since. They both scored, they're both physical presences. Or they both carry a physical presence is probably the better grammar to put it, considering I'm a journalist. But when it came to sort of the differences in the two games, we played some great football in both games. We probably dominated possession-wise both games, which you'd expect with the level of players that we have. But in the second game against Harlan and Wolf, we ground it out. When they equalised, I think with 4 minutes to go, Darren Murray scored a header. You thought, well, this is 2 points we've thrown away. And then Darren King, shall we say, won the penalty. Did very well. I think
he didn't buy it.
He didn't buy it whatsoever. He was chopped down like a tree in the box, and he made his point known at the final whistle to the Welders bench that weren't too chuffed with him. But I mean, from the perspective, then Dingo keeps his cool and slots away the penalty. I think if that goes the other way, if you don't get that penalty, or maybe they score a late winner, it makes last Saturday's win against Institute, or the game against Institute, should I say, completely different, a different perspective. But you're coming in then to that game on Saturday, which I know you were at, on a huge high because you had won in the 90th minute, the second game of the season, under the floodlights. There was a big crowd. It was dramatic. Fra Brennan gets substituted with about half an hour to go, so to make sure he doesn't get sent off, and then we score the winner. He runs on the pitch and gets sent off. You know what I mean? So that's the sort of guy we've signed. But yeah, no,
that's good passion for your second game, right?
Well, it is, yeah. I mean, everybody knows Fra. He's not short of passion and a few words to say, all the good way though. But I mean, yeah, it led us in perfectly to Saturday's game against Institute, which was your first game back as a married man.
It was. I was really impressed actually. I came down to the Tobin game a few weeks ago. My uncle was over, took him down to the game, and my dad came. And my dad never comes to watch the football. For some reason, he just doesn't like the local stuff. But he couldn't get over just how well Newry played. His last game actually was the playoff against Armagh. That's how long ago that was. Right, yeah. 4 years ago. Yeah. So he came down and he couldn't believe how well. 5 years ago. He couldn't believe how well they kept the ball on the ground. They moved quickly. It was just a real work rate. You could see it, and there's been a real change, I suppose, since last year. I mean, I thought we had the makings of a great team last year. Unfortunately, we weren't given that elite status and couldn't prove it. But we had the makings of a super team, and I think it's only been added to this year. There's a few losses, like you said earlier. Conor O'Keefe was a big one. It's a shame that we don't have him around, because I think him at the back. I mean, I don't think we could see the goal all season. Yeah. But I was really, really impressed with the performance of the Institute. Started when John scored. What was it? 7 minutes in. Yeah. You just knew it was our day. Now, Institute for us over the past few years have always been quite a tough team, a bit of a bogey team in a way. Yeah. And I know they haven't been great, but it was kind of half expecting a decent performance from them, but we just blew them away. I know they're poor, but we blew them away. Yeah, and I think, it's probably been highlighted in the managers, Sean Connor. That was proved to be his last game. He's part of the ways. I think he budget constraints and maybe suffering with a lot of injuries, but yeah, even at that, you always expect a decent Institute outfit, and I mean, to be quite honest, 5-1 was probably flattering towards them. We could have scored an awful lot. But you touched on something there about the players that we had last season. We only got to play 2 League Cup games or Mid-Ulster Cup games against Windmill Stars and Anna, so we didn't get to see the best of the players that we brought in. One of those, Thomas Lockett, started the season on fire, looks fantastic, and probably by his own admission is carrying a niggly injury at the moment. You've got obviously Ryan McGivern's come in and slotted in really well. Fraz slotted in really well. Stevie Maguire, as everybody knows, has come back. Super to have him back.
Yeah, he's done really well. But I think the massive plus for me, having John obviously back, John McGovern. It's still hard to believe he's only 18. He scored 2 on Saturday. Probably could have scored 3 or 4 at least. James Taylor come in, another 18-year-old.
A revelation.
Yeah. He's playing this right wing back role. We were playing this different formation, 3 at the back and 2 wing backs, and he's just absolutely fearless for a small 18-year-old. Gets kicked up and down the pitch, doesn't care. There's nothing a defender hates than a tricky winger running straight at them. He does his job tracking back. He creates. He scored. He just gives us a massive asset on each flank when Noel on the other side. So from that aspect, there's so many positives to take. This weekend will be a bit different. It's your first away game, so you are going into the unknown a wee bit. It is one of your longest trips. It's a tight pitch. It won't be a great pitch. It won't be conducive to the way we've knocked the ball about the first few games. Saying that, I don't expect anybody to if we play to the way we can play, I don't expect anybody to touch us. I'm going to throw it out there. Like,
adaptation is the big thing in this league, isn't it? And be able to go to different grounds and play different ways. Like, we've probably got the best pitch in the league, so we can play what we want. But it's, in previous years, it's going away to places like the Welders and that tight pitch and being able to grind out a result. And the fact that we did it at home to the Welders gives you hope for the season. Because like we've talked about this when we had the podcast before, but the frustration of maybe going to grounds and coming away with nothing and struggling against those teams. I think we have enough experience and enough youth it's a perfect blend. There's no fear in that squad. In previous years we're maybe catching up to the level that we're at, where this season we're established. I think this is a squad that could go up to the Premiership easily. And the fact that on Saturday, what really impressed me was on the right side we had James Taylor, we had John McGovern. The two of them have the same combined age as Hughesy, which he won't be delighted to hear about. But
another one, I subsequently found out the two of them were born on exactly the same day.
Seriously?
Yeah, they both turned 19 on October the 17th.
No way.
So I mean, the fact that they have another 2 months before they even turn 19, there's another year and a bit to go as teenagers, makes me feel really old. It makes me feel old, it must make Hughesy feel really old, even older.
It's a wee bit worrying though. Do you know when you see boys like this down here and they play so well, you're just like, how long can we keep on to these boys? Because the only thing that you hope is they're local fellas, and that's the big thing. Like, since the club has been rebuilt, is that local membership at the heart of it, and the players are all local fellas here. So hopefully that it's enough for them if we do get promotion this season, or if we do go up, that they want to stay and play for the club at that top level. Yeah,
well, I think that's key. It's something that Darren's always endeavoured probably every season, to bring in local players, to bring in guys that actually maybe have, not necessarily have an affinity with the club, but they can understand what the club means to people from the area. They do walk down the street, and now that's not to say the likes of Studsy, Sammy McIlveen's come in, has been excellent. Fraz come in, been good. Other guys that are in, Mark Kelly's obviously been here, loves the club. So that's not to say that they love the club any less, but I think they would probably agree that if you're from the local area and you see the supporters probably day in day out, it probably does. I would say it affects you, but hopefully it affects you in a positive way. But I think, we sort of talked a lot about expectations already, and the capabilities of the team. I said to people sort of off the record, and so now go on the record about it, that if we don't get promoted this season, I personally would class it as a failure. And it's not something that I've necessarily written about. It's not something that I would expect Darren to come out and say explicitly in an interview or anything like that, but I know it's probably the general consensus around the club, because the strength and depth of this squad, this club at this current time, I think is untouchable. In terms of Saturday's game, we had to make 3 changes. So Mark Kelly was injured, Darren King in a family bereavement, and Fra Brennan was suspended. We were able to bring in John McGovern for Mark Kelly, John Boyle for Fra, and Stevie Moan for Engine. Now, that's 3 guys that would start any other week, and
in any other team as well.
Yeah. And you're still sitting with Hughesy still out injured. You're starting with Decky Carville on the bench, and come on and scored. I think that tells its own tale. Yes, you're going to need a big squad, because the season's going to be relentless. There's going to be a target on our back. But in terms of bringing on players where they aren't going to weaken the side, is absolutely massive. And from that perspective, I think this is undoubtedly the strongest squad, certainly the strongest squad we've had in the Championship, and arguably as strong, if not the stronger squad than we had in the Premiership. Now, that doesn't always translate to getting promotion or getting results, because this is arguably the toughest Championship there's been in a long time, and we've seen some of the results. They're just they're really strange at the start. There's a lot of clubs that are vying for promotion, but it's a cliche, but momentum's key. If you keep this winning run going, especially if you can get another win on Saturday, you're coming into the next Friday night lights against Ards, which are probably going to be your biggest challengers this season. It's massive. If you can just keep it going and keep edging one game, taking them off one game at a time, then you just never know.
So on the record, what is your prediction for the season? What do you think?
Win the league.
Come May, we're going to win the league.
Win the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I am. This might people might not believe me. I don't take them in your hat off. I've looked at who teams have signed, and obviously I've seen certain teams that we've played so far, and yes, to be fair, Knockbreda with all due respect, are not likely to feature, or never likely to feature at the top end. Institute have obviously had their issues. Welders were a team that were much talked about, and Gary Smith is still talking about whenever they could get into the new stadium. That doesn't always work that way. Dundela were talked about. They signed Tony Kane from Ballymena. They signed Kyle Owens, who was at Crusaders in Ballymena, and they could beat in the first 3 games.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think you can't win the league in the first 3 games, but you can certainly go a long way to losing it. Ballymallard have lost a lot of players and got hammered in the first game. Ards and Loughgall would have been my 2 at the start of the season, along with us, that were going to be the big challengers. Loughgall have already lost a game. Still think they'll be very, very hard to beat.
Yeah.
They signed Lorcan Ford, obviously, who we all know about from Newry, but
and they gave us a really tough time 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, they're a good side. They're very hard to beat up there as well. But I genuinely just have a sort of feeling that when things, everything is sort of falling into place. Don't get me wrong, we could end up with an injury crisis. But I still think if we have 4 or 5 players out, we have 4 or 5 players to come in and don't weaken the side. So I think that's going to be key.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think naturally Darren will keep the expectations low, because you don't want to go out there and say something and then it come back to bite you. But I think you'll have experienced this, but there's a buzz about the ground at the minute. We've got crowds coming down a bit more than we're used to at the start of the season, to be honest. There's that wee bit of an expectation that something might be happening this season. And the fact that there are so many local players, we've seen a lot more pockets of people from Newry coming down to watch us, which is great as well. I believe we will win this league, and without being too confident, I think we'll win it at a canter. If we get to Christmas time,
without being too confident, I think we'll win it at a canter. That's sort of contradiction.
Well, I will say I think we'll walk it. I think we will.
Even I haven't got that bold.
No, I think we will, and it might come back to bite me.
Can I just point out we're not an official club podcast?
Exactly.
This is completely unofficial. We do not represent the views of the club. Disclaimer time.
We're once removed, but you know what? There is a time to be realistic, but there's also a time to say we have a great squad, and I think that this squad is good enough to be one of the best. I suppose one of the best sides the Championship has seen in recent years. And with the experience of Ryan being added in, the other players you've mentioned, why not?
Well, one of the things funny that Darren said when I did the post-match interview after the Institute game on Saturday, sort of talking about momentum, and again it's that cliche that winning breeds more winning, and you take one game at a time and all the rest of it. But it's very easy to get into a winning habit, as much as it is to get into a losing habit. So it's great to pick it up this early in the season. But the one thing he said was, he's tried. He doesn't even have to try to instill a sort of a drive and a hunger into the players. He says they do that themselves. Yeah. He says you have the likes of Dingo, who's even at I think 29 is still experienced, 29 or 30 is still experienced. Ryan, experienced, but is still young. Ryan has obviously been there, done it, got the t-shirt, played at the highest level, and is still hungry. He's enjoying his football again, and is still hungry to go and win something with his hometown club. You've got the likes of Hughesy and Darren King, who are vastly experienced, know what the club's about. But then you have the likes of James Taylor, John McGovern, Noel Healy, Brian Healy, even Josh Wilson come on Saturday, did really well. You've all these guys that probably certainly haven't won anything at the senior level in their career. They're sort of leading the charge, and when you have that blend that you talked about earlier, and you have that pocket of young players who have absolutely no fear, who don't care who they're playing against, it's just everything's just the jigsaw pieces are just gradually falling into place. So I just hope somebody doesn't come along and scatter them all anytime soon. They'll look really stupid after all these bold predictions we're making.